Hey there, this is Anne-Marie, the Anti-HR HR lady, and on this channel, I share content that seeks to educate employees about their workplace rights and to teach them how to assert their rights in the workplace if they believe that they are being violated. If that content is of interest to you, please hit the subscribe and the like button and share this video with a friend. Hi, you guys. It is the Anti-HR HR lady here, and I know that I haven't been on in a while, but that's because I have been traveling. For some of you who may not be aware, I have a travel company in addition to my HR business, and I take small groups of Black women on trips around the world. And between January and the end of May, I have been traveling. I have been to the continent of Africa. I've been to the Caribbean twice, and also to Europe. So I've been a busy beaver in terms of my travel schedule. So I haven't had time to really make a lot of videos. I've tried to make some, but I have not been able to make as many, and so much is going on that I have opinions about, and I haven't been able to say that much. But I am back now. I just got back from Croatia a couple of days ago. And, you know, some of you may know, I don't even live in the United States anymore. I had to get out of the US about 3 years ago, and I live in Mexico now. But of course, I still care very much about what happens in the United States because I have a lot of clients. HR clients are mostly American, not all, but mostly American. And I have family members and people that I love dearly that still live in the US. So I still care a lot about what happens there. The interesting thing about America is that when you don't live there anymore, it's a lot easier to see it more clearly than when you do. And now that I don't live there anymore, I can say that a lot of things that I may not have always seen as clearly or understood as well, I do understand. And one of the things that's very clear to me is that Black Americans are permanent underclass citizens in the United States of America, right? I recently received a message from someone on TikTok, and they wanted to know what I thought about the recent fearlessfund decisions, as well as the recent dismissal of a lawsuit against a company called Hello Alice. And they are related, but the outcomes are a little different. And I'll comment a little bit about, you know, why I think that is. But in the fearlessfund issue, the fearlessfund is a private venture capitalist fund founded by two Black women that has given out over $26 million to Black female entrepreneurs to support the either start or primarily, I think, the growth of their business. So, for example, Slutty Vegan, which is a chain of plant-based burgers and other things that started in Atlanta, now is all over the country, founded by a Black woman, received funding from them. And many other Black female-led companies have received funding from them. And they are a private venture capitalist firm. Now, venture capitalist firms are companies that invest in companies that they think have promise, and then they usually get, make money by getting stock or back end, but they make money from these investments, right? And the number one recipients of venture capitalist funds are white men. I think followed by probably Asian entrepreneurs and white females. And I can double check that data, but I think it's accurate. Black women have received about 0.3% of venture capitalists of over, I think it was 20 something, 200 plus million, not million, billion with a B, I think it was. And I'll double check that and drop it in the screen if I'm wrong, of funding, but the percentage is correct. It was 0.3% is what Black women received as of 2022, I think, when the last data was collected. So obviously the current system was not giving Black women access to these funds, which is why the Fearless Fund was created, where people with their private money created a fund. And yet Edward Bloom, the same man who brought the lawsuit that overturned affirmative action, targeted them and filed a lawsuit against them saying that they were engaging in racial discrimination because the fund was created to fund Black women's businesses because Black women are unable to access the venture capitalist funds that currently exist because they're primarily run by white males primarily, and they give the money to people that look like them, right? Now, there's been a lot of hand-wringing on social media about the Fearless Fund. People are, acting as this is shocking. It's not shocking to me. So the first comment is, what do I think of it? I don't think it's surprising. And I think it's going to continue until people take necessary action to make it stop. Now, in Ohio, a lawsuit was filed against a company called Hello Alice. It was started by a white woman named, her last name is Gore, I believe, and in partnership with Progressive Insurance Company, and it gives out small grants to Black entrepreneurs. It's not limited to women, but Black entrepreneurs. And they give out small grant awards to these companies, and a lawsuit was filed by an organization called America First Legal. I think that was the name of it. I'm just going to double check because I was just reading the article. Yes, the company was created by Elizabeth Gore and Carolyn Rhodes. I believe they're both white females in partnership with Progressive Insurance Company. And it's given up, awarding up to 25,000 grants to 10 Black-owned businesses in partnership with Progressive. And they were sued by a man who owns a Ohio-based trucking company, who said he applied for it and didn't know that it was only for Black-owned businesses. And he was helped in his lawsuit by America First Legal. And you should remember the name of that organization because Edward Bloom is behind it. I think that the reason that there's a different, and the lawsuit was dismissed by a federal judge in Ohio, right, against Hello Alice. Now, in the Fearless Fund, there's been multiple actions. This is a federal appeals court that has then said that it's discrimination and that therefore they can't continue to operate the fund as it's currently operated, right? And I think that, the outcomes have more to do with, where the lawsuits are filed and what court they're brought. But the other thing that people need to understand is that just like the Fearless Fund grant program was ruled on appeal to be discriminatory, that it's very likely that the suit that was just dismissed in federal court in Ohio will be appealed, and then it's very likely that it could be overturned again on appeal. Because what you need to understand is over the 4 years that Donald Trump was in the White House, he appealed, with the help of Mitch McConnell, they spent a lot of their time appointing, not just did he get how many Supreme Court judges, 3? Or was it 4? He got Gorsuch, that woman that don't know what she's talking about, and another one. So you have three appointments, and the sexual assaulter. So it's 3 people on the Supreme Court. These are lifetime appointments. But also he spent a lot of time appointing very young conservative Republican judges all across the federal bench, all up and through the federal bench. Okay, again, these are lifetime appointments, most of them. Like, for example, the judge who just put his whole trial on hold was appointed by him in Florida, right? Where he, stole the classified documents, then wouldn't give them back. Now that whole case is on hold because the judge who was appointed by Donald Trump has put it on hold for the foreseeable future, probably waiting to see if he gets elected or not. So the bench is corrupted now. It's partisan. The Supreme Court, we've got judges and their wives flying the U.S. flag upside down from their homes and all this kind of stuff, and they're on the Supreme Court, and there's nothing that can be done to remove them. And then you got Clarence Thomas saying Brown versus the Board of Education should be overturned, which means separate but not equal should be reinstituted in the public school system. Separate but equal, which is basically separate but not equal, should be reinstituted. So all of these things are happening all at the same time. What I really think people need to pay attention to and understand is that none of this stuff is isolated, right? So if you're more interested in what I think about the Fearless Fund court decision and the Hello Alice court decision, You're actually asking the wrong question. What you should be asking is, what do I think all of this means, right? All this means that the campaign to put Black people back to the times of Jim Crow continues. Because that's what this really is. There is a sector of our country that really believes that they want America to go back to what it was like pre-civil rights times. I think they'd like to get back to the 1900s, right, where women didn't have any rights over their bodies, white men ran everything, and Black people knew to get out of, step out of white people's way on the sidewalk, right? They want to go back to that. And the question becomes, do you want to go back to that? And what are you prepared to do? So, when I see people on TikTok, even some people that I respect, making comments saying that both political parties are the same and that they're not going to vote for either one of them, it seems very short-sighted to me, because for Black people, we can't afford to make decisions based on who we like the best. We have to make decisions when we vote based on who's going to harm us the least, right? And I think right now it's very clear who's going to harm us the most. So, and who's already caused significant harm to us just by having the White House for 4 years. And you need to understand that they have the House of Representatives, which is pure chaos. The only thing that hasn't happened yet is open fisticuffs on the floor, which I believe is coming. Remember that I made that prediction. The only thing that hasn't happened yet is that. They're now holding hearings about COVID while we don't have affordable health care. People are getting shot down in the street for no good damn reason. But they are having hearings about a pandemic that doesn't exist anymore for the most part, right? Because they are agents of chaos. And that's just in one chamber of the House. They have the House. All Senate seats are up for re-election come November. The White House is up for re-election. Your local elections are probably many of your city council seats and your local legislature, your state legislature. All those things are up for election. The question becomes, who's going to harm you the least? That's the question you have to ask yourself, and you have to vote. Sometimes you got to hold your nose and do it, but you need to vote for somebody. As Black people, we can't afford to sit these things out, because the reality is we are not first-class citizens. We do not have full citizenship rights in the United States. So if you want to fall even lower down in terms of your citizenship, sit it out and see what's going to happen. If you think it can't get worse, I can promise you it can be worse than this, right? So we need to understand that this is a long game that's been played for a very long time. And once they got the Supreme Court, they whatever comes through there is no longer, Supreme Court used to be the last stand for rights, for civil rights in this country. That's not the case anymore. And I really believe that a lot of the laws that have already been passed, they're going to seek to get them overturned. All they need is the Senate and the White House. And so people need to really keep that in mind, that even being able to raise a discrimination claim in the EEOC is not something that you should believe can't go away. All of these things can go away, right? 2 years ago, women had a right to choose. Now they don't. A year ago, affirmative action wasn't illegal. Now it is. And that is the grounds that they have used to basically eliminate diversity, equity, inclusion everywhere, right? Now, what do I think that can be done in the short term in response to things is that I think people need to go back and rethink some of these things, right? Right now, white venture capitalists are out there giving money to whoever they want and no one is suing them. Maybe that needs to change. Maybe they need to be sued because they are clearly discriminatory in their practices. Otherwise, more people of color and more Black people would be getting money from them. So maybe more of them need to get sued, and issues of discrimination need to be raised against them. I think that we need to stop playing checkers and start playing chess. They've been playing a long game for a long time, and so the Black community needs to start unifying itself. We have a lot of economic power that we do not use. If Black people didn't spend money for about 3 days in America, it would cause a lot of harm. If Black people took all their money out of the banks and put them in Black banks, it would cause a lot of disruption, to say the least. But you have to be unified to do these things, and we're not unified. And that's what our primary problem is, in my view. So when people ask me, what do I think should happen? I think we need to be more unified. We need to be more unified in our workplaces. We need to be more unified about how we spend our money. we need to be all more unified about these things so that there is consequences to groups and communities that are seeking to harm us. But if, in America, it's all at the end of the day about white supremacy and capitalism, right? And about making money. And so if you can't get people to respect your rights as a human, maybe you can get them to respect your rights if you withhold your money. So I think there are a lot of things that the community can do, but it has to do it on a unified basis, right? But in the short term, these lawsuits are going to continue. Ed Bloom is now suing boards, corporate boards, to stop them from appointing Black people to their boards and people of color to their boards. He's on a mission to ensure that the rights of Black people are rolled back to the 1900s. So the question becomes, what are people prepared to do in response, right? So I'm not surprised by the Fearless Fund finding. I think at this point, it really depends on where some of these lawsuits get filed, who they end up in front of, whether the judge that is overseeing it is a Trump appointee or not. Because honestly, I don't believe that anybody that was appointed to the bench by Donald Trump is someone that is going to care anything about equality for people of color, women, anybody, right? Because they want to take us back to a society where white men get to run everything. And if you read their Project 2025 document, which I have read some of it, and it's online, I suggest you all Google it. That's their vision for what they're going to do come 2025 if they get a Republican back in the White House. I think people need to be afraid, be very afraid. If you live in the United States, you need to go Google it, you need to read it, and you need to take it seriously. Because this is what they intend to do. They're not even pretending anymore. The Black Republican representative from Florida just said the other day that he felt Black people were better off in Jim Crow. Clarence Thomas recently said that Brown versus Board of Education, which is probably the ruling in the Supreme Court ruling that started rolling back a lot of Jim Crow and segregation in the United States in education. It's a landmark decision. He said he thought it was wrongly decided, right? So Clarence Thomas is old, and it's very likely in the next 4 years, he may have to be replaced on the bench. The decision is who's going to replace him. That's what you need to think about when you're thinking about elections. Who's going to do us the worst harm? Not who's the best and who do we like the best and who do we think is the best, but who's going to harm you the most if they get to run the entire system, if they get control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. We saw what happened when they got it the last time in 2016, and it wasn't pretty. I think some people's memories are very short, but my memory is not. I left America for a reason. So I really think it comes down to, whether or not we understand what's happening right now. And if we understand it, whether we take it seriously, whether we understand that, things could get worse. And I wonder a lot whether people think that things can't get worse, People talk a lot about Nazi Germany. And I studied Nazi Germany when I was in high school and in college. And, people always would say that could never happen in America. And, I would do this and that, the other, and the third. And I have to say that, whatever you think you would do, you're actually doing it right now because there's a genocide happening in Palestine that no one wants to call a genocide. And at home, your rights are being rolled back. And I don't see much of a cry or upset in America, not a mass upset in America about what's happening. It's kind of shocking to me, someone sitting outside and watching what's going on. The rights that are being eroded, nobody's marching really per se. Nobody's really doing much of anything. There are no economic boycotts. There's nothing happening. It's like people are just so beaten down that they're not even willing to push back on what's going on. I wouldn't even say I'm shocked. I'm just disappointed to be so right about my expectation that these things will happen and that very little will be done. And then people will wring their hands and say, how did this happen? Just like nobody thought that a woman's right to choose wouldn't exist anymore, but it doesn't, right? Because if you can be given rights, it means that you're not a full citizen and that those rights can be taken away, right? And don't even get me started on, the fact that all the white women that are wringing their hands about their right to choose when they're the ones that voted to put this person in office, who put the people on the bench who took those rights away. But I digress, right? But the reality is that if you have to be worried every election about your rights, it's because you are not a full citizen. Full citizens don't have to concern themselves with who wins every 4 years. They don't have to concern themselves with that. They may be concerned about whether their taxes are going to go up, other things like that, but they don't want to worry about their actual rights. And the only group in America that gets to be that secure are white men. They don't have to worry about nobody taking their rights away. They don't, because nobody's trying to take their rights away. Regardless of what they sit and say, nobody's taking their rights away. The reality is, though, that many of them see anybody else having any kind of equality as taking their rights away, because it takes their right away to have their foot on the neck of everybody else. And so they are very invested in returning us to a time when they got to be in charge of everything. Men got to be in charge of everything, specifically white men. All the others are going to find out that they're not equal either under the new regime. But they are very invested in ensuring that everybody gets back to their, quote, place, unquote. Whether it's women, black people, people of color, whoever it is, they want to go back to what they call, when they talk about making America great again and the good old days, that's what they're talking about. That's what they're talking about, and that's what they want to see us go back to. And so the question becomes, if that's not what you want, what are you going to do about it? And I just worry because I don't see enough concern about what's going on. I just don't think people seem to be particularly worried. And I don't even live there, and I'm worried. So I just am really wondering, is no one else who lives in America worried? Or are people so worried about the cost of milk and the cost of eggs and the cost of bread and the cost of just basic necessities, rent, all these things that are so outrageously expensive now, and not accidentally, none of this stuff is accidental, that they don't have the time to pay attention to what's going on, and they won't notice until it's too late. And I suspect that's more of what it is than people not caring. I think people are so overwhelmed with so much that's happening all the time, all at once, that they aren't focusing. But I just, if you're watching this video, I beseech you to do at least one thing, which is, if you're not registered to vote, register to vote. And I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but I'm going to say to just think in terms of who's going to do you the least harm. Right? And the second thing that I would ask you to do is to read the Project 2025 document. I think every American should read that document. Just take a minute, go to Google Project 2025. It'll come up. It's not like they're hiding. They got a whole manifesto on the internet. They are very open about what they intend to do. So I really would like for people to go and read the document. And then think about what the impact will be on you if you're not a white male. Because they're the only people who are going to be all right. And even some of them ain't going to be all right under this situation. But they just don't see it yet. So the only people who are going to be all right are the rich white males. They'll be perfectly fine. But everybody's going to be in a world of hurt. So I really hope that what's going on, recent thing with the Fearless Fund and the Hello Alice is going to cause more of us to wake the hell up, is the only way I can put it. It's like, I feel like people are sleeping almost. And I really beseech us to wake up and start paying attention to what is happening. And then start creating, a long game of our own as Black people, particularly, so that we can start counteracting some of what is happening. But the number one thing that all of us collectively can do as citizens is to vote. And I don't live in the United States, but I will be voting because I'm still a taxpayer and a part-time resident. And so I think is a responsibility. And so I'm going to do that. And I don't even live there full time anymore. So I really hope that those of you who should be more invested in this than I am, will do the same. So those are my thoughts on the recent decisions relevant to the Fearless Fund and Hello Alice. And you can tell me what you think in the comments. If you enjoy this content, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave a comment. Be respectful in your comments though. Share this video with a friend. It would be really helpful to me. I will be sharing a lot more HR content over the next coming weeks and months, as I will not be traveling as much, so I'll have more time to do so. So if there are things that you would like me to talk about, please leave it in the comments and I will be happy to make a video. I have another video coming up soon as well on a different subject. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I look forward to hearing your comments and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.